Okay, what we want to do is begin the next phase here, lesson 19, which is, as you've anticipated, the next conjugation. But before we do that, let's go back and get a little bit of the road map where we're going, if you will. Turn to page 161 in your book, page 161, which is where back in chapter 17 with the Pi'el we first introduced all of the conjugations. And you might reference back to this if you look on page actually 158, 159, and 160. We sort of talk through all of the conjugations. And now that you've gotten through 2 steps into the water, take a step back out of the pool and look at the whole landscape again, so you sort of see how this all fits together. The little chart at the bottom of page 161 is a helpful way of seeing how the conjugations relate to one another. And you realize that what we have going on here is a set of systems, if you will, of conjugations that work in groups. Within each group there is an active conjugation, there is a passive conjugation, and there is a reflexive conjugation. Now again, all of this is sort of overgeneralized. Not every verb fits the pattern, believe me. But it's a way of getting a handle on how the big picture fits together. The 3 basic kinds of conjugations we have are the basic, sometimes called the B system, the basic conjugations. Some grammars will refer to these, like I said, in the B system, or if you're using some of the old German grammars, they'll call them the G system. G stands for Grundstamm, or basic foundational stem or system. The middle column are the so-called intensive conjugations, sometimes called the D system. D stands for doubling, which in the old German grammars was also represented by a D because the German word for double is doppel. Then we have the so-called causative system, and the causative system is characterized by the prefix H. Sometimes these are called the H conjugations. Okay? Now we already know the active pattern in each one of these systems. Okay? Can you see how we've already filled in the 3 basic, or the 3 boxes of the active? The basic active conjugation is, of course, ka, right? The basic intensive, or sorry, the active intensive of the kal is the Pi'el, right? And sometimes, by the way, Pi'el is just abbreviated D because it's your active D system conjugation. And then, of course, the causative we've learned as the Niphal, which is sometimes abbreviated in the literature just with the H for the H prefix. Okay? That's all review. Now, what we're going to do for the rest of the course here in terms of filling in the verbs now is really filling in these boxes. Okay? We're going to go back to this one, but just to show you where we're going. There is a passive to the kal, there is a passive to the Pi'el, and there is a passive to the Niphal. All right? The passive of the Pi'el is called the pu'al. And you don't have to worry about that until next week. All right? That's the next lesson. The passive of the Niphal is called the hafal. And you don't have to worry about that until we're done with the pu'al. All right? That's all coming, all right? Sometimes these are abbreviated by using the letter of the conjugation plus a P. The P, you could guess, stands for passive. So the pu'al is the passive of the D system. The reason it's helpful, by the way, this is sort of an aside. You can live without knowing DP, and most grammars will simply call this pu'al, and most of the literature and other textbooks call it the pu'al. But what's nice about knowing these little sigla or descriptors is that they work for all Semitic languages. You essentially have this same basic verb structure in Aramaic, in Ugaritic, in Akkadian, and the other languages that are all related to Hebrew. All right, and if you ever go on and at least learn Aramaic, which is another biblical language, as you may know, you still talk about a D system, and a DP is the passive. It's just not called a pual.